Let's talk about Springsign, an upcoming game about running for mayor against anarchists. Welcome to Brains on Games. I'm Dr. Brian McDonald. In this episode, we're going to talk about an upcoming game that was sent to me recently by the folks over at The End Games. And it's a game that's about running for mayor of a forest town. Everybody's going to play as animal characters. It's a game called Springsign. Now, Springsign is a game for between 1 and 6 players, so there are solo rules in the box. It works with kids aged 10 and up, and games only take about an hour or two to play. Let's take a deeper look at Springsign from The End Games. This is a prototype, so tokens and artwork and even the rules might change a little bit. One change I know that's coming for sure is that they're working on finalizing advanced player boards. They're making sure that everything balances out, but you'll be able to play boards that are asymmetric so that not everybody has the same, well, everyone has the same actions that they can take, but they might cost different resources, and everyone will have some special ability that their player board will allow them to use. Springsign is a light game. It's not too complicated. I mean, the resource management is the hardest part maybe of the game, but it is light. And what you're trying to do in this game, you're going to win by earning enough votes to be elected mayor. And you need a different number of votes depending on the player count. And 2 to 4 players, you've got to get 4 votes in order to win the game. You're not just competing against the other players, though. There's also this anarchy token, and if anarchy is more popular than the players, then anarchy wins and all of the players lose. The way that I've set things up here is not quite the way that the actual board will be set up when you're playing the game. There are particular buildings that are going to be out. Buildings are interesting because any player can use them. They're not controlled by any player, and if a new building comes up, it covers up the old one. You've got relics that give you some ongoing permanent ability unless somebody steals that relic from you. These things are pretty powerful too. Of course, you've got your popularity tracker and your vote tracker here on the side. At the beginning of each turn, you start by filling up these little spaces on the board, on the settlers, even on the troublemakers and bandits that are coming into town. Anywhere where you've got a symbol with a little clock underneath is going to get another one of these tokens. These are super important because you spend these tokens to take different actions in the game. So you need fish to feed settlers. You need to have some might over here, or some these sword tokens in order to fight against bandits, for example. You need to study. You need those blue scroll tokens in order to get one of these relics. So there are lots of different ways that you're going to be spending these resources, but they're going to pile up through the game unless you take them as you go through. So these resources, especially the ones on the board here, are going to pile up and pile up at every turn. And so you might get a great big stack of them when you take some action that allows you to grab those resources. And you spend those resources to take action. So I can spend a fish to feed a settler. That's going to allow me to take one of the tokens off of that settler. So you've got these buildings. The buildings are going to allow all of the players to maybe spend some resources or give them some ongoing ability. You can buy these relics. My favorite relic was a backpack that gave you 2 extra spaces, 2 extra resource spaces, because you find as you get through the game that the number of spaces you have here in your backpack, it's way too limited to do all the things you want to do. Some of these actions take 4 tokens in order to do them, and you've only got a limited number here that you can hold at any given time. So you can buy these relics, you can use the buildings, you can replace buildings, you can also hire these settlers and bring them into your homestead, and then at the beginning of the turn, instead of these tokens being available to all of the players if they feed that settler, those tokens go right into your backpack at the start of each turn, and that's how you're kind of building up an engine that's going to give you those resources that will allow you to take the actions that you want to take, although you are, as I said, limited by the number of spaces you have in that backpack. So everybody's going to spend their resources. Sometimes you'll do something that will make you more popular, and you might have your tokens moving on the popularity board over here. Then when everyone's done, if I'm done all of the actions that I want to take, maybe I want to save some resources or I'm totally out of resources, then the action I can take is to go home. And when you go home, you get to choose one of these little, they're called harvest tokens. So the first one to finish gets his choice of whichever ones he wants. This is going to give me 2 food and make sure that I get the first player token for the next round. Once everyone has returned home, well, there's a few things that you need to do. You need to check on these troublemakers and to see how popular maybe anarchy is in your city. So if you look over here, you've got those fire symbols. This is a bandit. He's got 2 fire symbols. This is just a settler who's a troublemaker. He's got 1. And that means that anarchy is going to move up 1, 2, 3 spaces on the board. Now, the turtle and anarchy are tied right now for being the most popular. Those guys are both going to get a vote here, and then they go all the way back down to 0. Now, if you managed on a turn to cross over and get more than 6 popularity, get up to more than 6 popularity, you don't have to get it all in one turn, then you can go back down to 1, but you get a vote. So there are a number of different ways you can earn these votes, and the game's going to end when someone gets to that set amount at the top of the board. But it's very easy for anarchy to kind of run away with the game. You have to be careful here. Even though the players are competing with one another to be the one who's the most popular, who's going to get that vote at the end of each round, if you don't kind of work together to make sure that these anarchy symbols go away, you're going to find that anarchy very quickly becomes the the most popular, and everybody winds up losing and no one wins. So you're going to want to earn or save up some might tokens so that you can get rid of those bandits, because that's 2 anarchy symbols at the beginning of every turn. And you need to be careful when you draw from this world deck, because if you do decide to explore in the hopes of finding a good relic to go down here or another building with a different ability, I mean, this is where the bandits come from. There are a lot of bandits in this deck, so you wind up adding more and more and more bandits to your stack here. And I mean, look at this. A bandit's going to get a vote right away as soon as you count those things up. So you've got settlers that you can take resources from, or you can hire them into your homestead, and that's going to earn you resources that go into your backpack every single turn. Once you've counted up those votes and you've figured out the popularity of all the players in the game, you add a couple of settlers to the board. You replenish all of those spots that require you to replenish them. You're going to fill up your backpack, and then the first player of the turn starts all over again, and you continue until you get up to that number of votes that you need in order to win the game. What skills, though, are you practicing when you play Springsign? Well, this is a game that does require some budgeting. Of course, you're budgeting your resources, you're budgeting the actions that you can take. You're trying to be very careful about making sure that you don't get too many of those fire symbols at the bottom that's going to cause the players to lose the game. So there is a lot of budgeting. There's planning ahead. You get so few resources at the beginning of the game, and then you have to figure out which of these settlers down here do I want to hire in order to get the right symbols that I want later on to do whatever action it is that I want to take. So you're budgeting and you're planning, and whenever those are things that are happening in a game, and they do happen in most strategy games, we're talking about executive functioning skills, those skills and behaviors that you need to work toward goals. And that's what this game is about for sure. It's light. There's not, a super amount of complex planning and problem solving to be done here, but you are doing planning, you're doing that budgeting and resource management as well. So those are definite examples of executive functioning skills. Final thoughts about Springsign. Well, this is a game that you're doing a little bit of, not very complex, but you're doing a little bit of engine building. You're doing a lot of resource management. And so you've got those cute animals. You're going to have those advanced player boards. I'm so excited for the advanced player boards. We really enjoyed playing this game. Every time I played it with my group, this was a hit. What made it a hit was the limited number of resources that you could hold. So you were always making choices towards the end of the game about what you needed the most. You were really working hard to get the right relics that would give you an ability that would allow you to earn more votes. And it was the anarchy really that I think kind of elevated Springsign, because it's not a cooperative game, but in a way you might sometimes need to cooperate in order to make sure that this fire symbol doesn't run away with it. That was our favorite part. It really made it a different experience, I think, than some of these other engine builders or worker placement games, because you've got uh, not well, it's sort of like another player, but there's no real AI to speak of. You're just counting up those symbols each turn. So it's super simple to keep track of. But wow, do you ever need to save up those battle tokens so that you can get rid of the bandits? Or maybe you want to make sure that the other players don't take all of the resources off of one of these troublemakers so they get discarded before you count up the fire symbols on them. So um, that anarchy element to it, that extra, it's not even a dummy player, because I don't like games where you have to control a dummy player. It's just that simple count of, are the players doing what they need to do to become mayor of this town, or are people just getting fed up? So such a neat mechanism that we really, really like. We like the animal theme, and I'm super excited about those asymmetric player abilities. The ones that I've seen, the examples that I've seen so far, they're going to be a lot of fun. Although you might sometimes get players fighting over one that they particularly prefer. But you've got a game that's quick to play. It's easy to learn. Well, I say quick. It's under 2 hours for sure. Honestly, if you're not careful, it's going to end very quickly because Anarchy is just going to win the game. But it's not too challenging. Um, there's a little bit of take that in terms of relics that might allow you to steal someone's relic, um, but there's not too much take that. There's interaction in terms of figuring out when you need to cooperate to do something about anarchy taking over. So it's just a fun experience. It's not a brain burner. But there are interesting decisions in terms of managing those resources. There's fun choices in terms of the actions that you're taking. You've got the animal theme. The artwork on the cards is fun. This was a great game. I mean, are there downsides? Maybe some of the cards are extra powerful and might be the most desirable ones. I wanted that backpack. Every game, if the backpack came up, I needed to make sure that I had enough tokens on my board in order to get that relic before anyone else got it, because that gives you 2 extra spaces for resources, which is a fantastic ability to have. So there might be some cards that would be extra sought after, but that's a minor, not even a quibble really. Of course, in a game like this, there's going to be some cards that are going to speak to a player's strategy, but we just had a great time. This was a winner. Every time I pulled it out, it was a winner. Some of my friends would come over and be like, well, let's play Springsign again. So it's just a prototype, but everybody enjoyed it. Everybody wanted to play it again. So I have to say thanks so much to the folks at the End Games for sending the Springsign prototype my way. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions, you can leave them in the comment section below the video. I reply to all of those comments, or you can email me at brian@brainsongames.ca. Brainsongames.ca is the website. That's where future episodes will go. Previous ones are already up there. Brains on Games is the X handle on the Facebook page and the Instagram feed, so we're all over the place. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to be notified of future ones, you can head on over to YouTube and click that subscribe button. Thanks for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you next time.